Okay, back to that Yamaha 650. I found like I said, I showed you that little issue with the wiring underneath the right side cover. And there were a few other odd things. I went up in the headlight, rooted around in that. I did find a couple of suspect areas, so I fixed them up. Anyway, when I put the headlight back in, all of a sudden I had no lights. So I was, oh God, what did I do? So back into that headlight for probably about 2 hours trying to figure out what I had unplugged inadvertently or what have you. Anyways, I couldn't find anything wrong with it, so I got fiddling around with other things, and I went back here because I thought maybe I would wire the feed directly from the fuse box to the headlight. Plus, I discovered that headlight switch on the handlebars on this model year is totally redundant. The two wires coming out of that, they had them just plugged into each other so that when you turned the key on the bike, the headlight automatically came on, which isn't really a good idea because you're drawing power away from your starting system and your coils and that sort of thing. Anyhow, I got to monkeying around with that little lighting relay there. I think what's supposed to happen if you lose a beam on the headlight, it's supposed to sense that and automatically change it to a different beam. Anyway, so what I did, I hooked a wire up to it, and all of a sudden the headlight came on. Of course, it wouldn't stay on unless the wire was hooked on there permanently. So what I did was I bypassed that switch altogether, and I fastened a lighting wire to the wiring harness that would feed the headlight through the headlight bucket and that sort of thing. And while I was in there, I hooked the two wires that are coming from that switch to the darn headlight. So now that switch isn't just a decoration, it actually does something. So when the bike is off, you can turn the headlight off when you go to start it and that sort of thing. Anyway, we decided that since the alternator rotor had no continuity at all, there's obviously a wire broken in there somewhere, we decided that we'd replace it with this excess charge kit that he had bought about a year or so ago for it. There's the stator right there. It's kind of opposite. The stator's the small part on this one, and the rotor's the big part. But anyway, you have to, of course, remove the old alternator to get at it. And as I'm doing that, I finally get up there to unplug the old alternator. And behold the horrors that I found under here. Do you suppose I wonder that might have had something to do with the bike blowing fuses? It just might have. It's a wonder it didn't burn down. Anyway, so there's a huge problem right there that I'm going to have to look after. So anyway, yeah, I'll prise that apart somehow or other. I'll probably cut the wires off right under here for now, but I mean, these Yamaha 650 wiring harnesses, especially on the later ones, they just got more and more and more complicated. If it was up to me, and I wasn't trying to save this guy a bit of money, I think this old wiring harness is going to be fine once I salvage that problem. But in any case, we'll get down to the nitty-gritty here, as they say, and we'll go from there. Anyway, I'll let you know how it proceeds. All right, let's move along with the 650 again today. The sun is trying to come out today. We did have a really good spring this year, a lot of sunshine, beautiful weather, which is unusual for Nova Scotia, but in any case, we had all those wildfires, which was no good, but then the rain came. And it's been raining almost every day for a month now. We get the odd day that it's nice here in the last week or so, but I'm hoping that pretty soon this terrible weather will break. We did have a really nasty storm system that came up the coast from the Carolinas and that, and it really dumped a heck of a lot of water on us there, about 5 days ago. Caused a lot of flooding and stuff, which is extremely unusual for this time of year around here. And yes, a lot of water came down so fast that it shocked me. I've never seen it rain that hard in my 66 years. But anyway, here we are. We've got the new rotor installed over the stator. This is, of course, the XS charging system that Mike's XS produced in order to replace the old system. It's a permanent magnet installation, so the field does not get regulated on these rotors. Instead, I suspect there's probably a Zener diode in the regulator, which plugs into this, and then all this stuff up here will be all redundant. I may untape that wire and remove anything that's not necessary in that wire and loom. Then again, I may not. We'll just see how it goes. But the instructions are a bit vague for installing these, especially when it comes to making your own timing marks, which you have to do on these. I had to go online and I found out what the full advance position is on these rotors, and of course I marked it on the rotor and on the case itself, so that I can set the timing up with a strobe light, because this unit here, as I think I mentioned before, doesn't have a set of points up there in the cam, so I'm waiting for an ignition system to come from eBay for that, and that's coming from the United States. That means it's coming USPS, and God only knows when it'll get here. Because, man, I thought Canada Post was messed up, but those guys down there, that postal system, they bounce stuff all over the country before it comes across the border to Canada. Anyway, it'll get here sooner or later, and when it does, I'll put it in. Meanwhile, I'll carry on with installing the rest of the wiring and the voltage regulator, which is supposed to fasten on in behind there. So I'll keep you posted. Okay, other than going through, what's left of that wires in the old wiring harness, that pretty much wraps up the installation of that new alternator. This setup actually has a fuse that they recommend you put in between the battery and the rectifier regulator, which is in there. That's pretty good. Anyway, the instructions are quite simple in regards to hooking up the output from the rectifier regulator to the directly to the battery. They don't recommend you go through the wiring harness at all, which is just fine with me. Simpler the better. In fact, if this was my bike, I'd probably rip that old wiring harness off there and just rewire the whole damn thing. Make it a whole lot simpler and a lot easier to deal with if you ever had problems with it. But anyway, while I wait for that new ignition system to come in, I just decided I might as well have a look at those old air filters, because you can sort of see one way in there. I don't know if you can make it out or not. That plug's probably in the way. Yeah, the foam is pretty much gone off of them, so what I'm going to do is I'll replace that foam with some I have here in the shop, and I don't know, that should give them another 40 years worth of service. So meanwhile, like I said, while I'm waiting for the ignition system to show up, I'll look after a few other little things like this.